So, though the beginning of the season may still be a ways away, it's rapidly approaching. And with that in mind, today we need to turn our attention to Tuscaloosa and the Crimson Tide, where Alabama is going to have to replace a lot, both in terms of offensive production and in terms of defensive production, which has led many of you to ask me the question what I believe the most important position battle for the Crimson Tide is. And today we aim to answer that question. And personally, I don't think the answer to the question is close. Can't wait to dive into it all. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. First and foremost, let me know what you think the most important position battle is. And then secondly, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe the Crimson Tide has a 1,000-yard rusher, a 1,000-yard receiver, or both this season? Can't wait to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And we are less than 800 subscribers away from our 20,000 subscriber mark. I'd love to have you a part of this unbelievable community, and if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below, as that really helps the channel. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And as I stated in the intro, I've been asked several times what I believe the most important position battle for the Crimson Tide is, especially with so much new. We're talking a new feature running back, though that room is incredibly loaded, something we'll get into. We're talking a new starting quarterback. We're talking a new offensive coordinator, and that's just relegated to the offensive side of the ball. Though, for the astute listeners out there, you may have been able to put together that the position group we're going to talk about is also located on the offensive side of the ball based on the examples I just gave. And if you came to me and said, Ty, I think the quarterback position is ultimately the most important for the Crimson Tide to get right this year, it's tough to argue with, especially when you look, there is talent in the room, but there's a lot of talent elsewhere on this roster, and if Alabama can get the quarterback position right, it will inevitably unlock a lot to this offense. So while I grant you that is a very important piece, in my opinion, it is not the most important piece. There is a piece to this Alabama offense, this Alabama team that supersedes the quarterbacks, and of course, today, we're talking about the offensive line. If the offensive line does not win the point of attack, it really doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. You can have a phenomenal quarterback, he's going to be running for his life. Don't believe me? Look 2 years ago, Bryce Young's first year, the year he won the Heisman, Bryce was sensational. I've called Bryce a magician several times here on this channel, but Bryce was running for his life. It was his ability to make plays happen down the field while evading the pass rush, and his ability to keep his eyes downfield and remain a passer while on the run that really separated Bryce and allowed him to carve defenses up. But at the same time, you don't want to bank on that philosophy when you don't have Bryce Young. That was one of the things that made Bryce Young a bit of a unicorn, that made him so special. And sure, there are other quarterbacks that can throw on the run. There are not many other quarterbacks that can do what Bryce Young did when the play broke down. We've talked about it on the channel. Alabama's offense was sometimes best when the play broke down and they had to have Bryce Young play hero ball. And that's not really where you want to be. So the offensive line, they can help that. They can provide a safe, secure pocket for the new quarterbacks to be able to operate in. And if we look at all of the quarterbacks, every quarterback that's really battling for this, and Dylan Lonergan and Eli Holstein are absolutely involved in the battle, but them being true freshmen, them being guys that really should have been preparing for their senior prom whenever they were playing in the spring game, it'd be hard for them to supersede any of the three quarterbacks that I believe are really vying for that position, being Tyler Buckner, Ty Simpson, and of course Jalen Milroe. So if we focus in on the three guys that I think are really vying for the position, all of them have escapability, with Jalen Milroe having supreme mobility. So if you can give your quarterback a clean pocket, let them operate, if nothing happens, all of the guys have the ability to escape the pocket and make something happen with their legs. Like I said, Jalen Milroe has a supreme ability to escape the pocket and make something happen with his legs. But at the same time, you want the quarterback dictating what's happening. If the quarterback decides to run, you want that to be his decision. You don't want the defense dictating what a new quarterback is going to be doing for Alabama, because if the defense is getting the quarterback off of his spot, that can make him uncomfortable. Where if the quarterback is the one saying, okay, there's nothing downfield, I have a clean pocket, I can pick up 5 yards, easy slide, live to see the next down, he's going to be able to stay in rhythm. He's going to be able to keep that momentum going, and that's the first reason why I think the offensive line is so big. Alabama's going to be breaking in a new quarterback, and we want that quarterback to have protection, to have confidence, and to be able to get in rhythm. The best way to do that, keep him upright. The best way for that to happen, your offensive line has got to win the point of attack. But there are ripple effects to this. Much like when you pick up a tiny stone and throw it in the pond, you might not think much of it until you turn back around and see that the ripple effects are stretching from one end of the pond to the other, if it's a small pond, I grant you. But the point remains. Just one action can have several small ripple effects. And if Alabama gets the offensive line right, I think the ripple effects will be as follows. Last year was the first time since 2002, so it was 20 years since the Alabama didn't have a 1,000-yard rusher, as Jahmyr Gibbs was very close, but he didn't hit 1,000 yards rushing, or a 1,000-yard wide receiver. The first time in 20 years, Alabama had neither a 1,000-yard rusher or a 1,000-yard wide receiver. Alabama now has a new offensive coordinator. They now have a new quarterback. They now have a new feature running back, and the wide receiver room is going to shake up some with some new faces coming in there. The way you can help guarantee success for your running backs, for your wide receivers, and like we just discussed, your quarterback, your offensive line winning the line of scrimmage. And before we really dive into what this could mean for the running backs, let's talk about this offensive line. Because this isn't an offensive line that's settled by any means. If we start on the right side, because I think there's the most security on the right side, and work our way over, there's a lot of interesting conversations to have. At right tackle, J.C. Latham, in my opinion, is in for a big year, but so too is his right guard, Tyler Booker, someone who really burst on the scene last year and showed Crimson Tide fans everywhere just how talented he is. At center, I think Seth McLaughlin is going to have a big year. I think the offense operates better when he's at center, and I think it allows for something unique. For Darian Dalcourt to slide into left guard, because he has experience. He is an experienced offensive lineman, and that left tackle position is going to be an inexperienced offensive lineman, so if you can get that experience on the left side to help out that left tackle, that's something I do find compelling, but make no mistake about it. That left guard position is going to be one you need to circle because Terrence Ferguson is a very talented individual. And I even wonder, could an Ola Salinen prove to be too good to keep off the field and you slide him there? Questions that deservedly need to be asked, especially after Nick Saban lauded over Ola Salinen. And then we get to the left tackle position, where Elijah Pritchett and Caden Proctor, as well as Ola Salinen, are going to be battling it out for that position. Now, personally, Caden Proctor is a dude. We said this when he was in high school. I maintain this right now. I wouldn't be shocked if he came in here and sewed up that position. But the name we all need to focus on, Coach Eric Wolford, because everywhere he's gone, you can see a statistical uptick in offensive line production, and now he's been in the system. It's not a new offensive line he's inheriting. He gets to work with an offensive line he has familiarity with, and I think we're going to see some growth, or at least you should hope you see growth from the Alabama offensive line. Because if the Alabama offensive line grows, we've talked about the quarterback position. We know what that offers the quarterbacks, but what about the running backs? And I think that's a fairly easy argument for me to make. I don't have to say much here for you to understand the point I'm trying to make. Your offensive line is a direct effect on your running backs. If they're opening up holes, the running backs are going to be able to get after it. And even though, like I said, Alabama's not going to have Jahmyr Gibbs, that doesn't mean that running back room is devoid of talent. Far from it. Jace McClellan is an experienced back, someone who, if I could bet money on it, if I was a betting man, I would bet he's going to have a big year. But don't sleep on some of these young running backs coming in for Alabama. They are very talented, and if the offensive line is playing bully ball, those running backs will play bully ball as well. And then we get to the wide receivers. If the quarterback has time to operate, if Alabama starts going through the game, the running game is going. They're able to get first downs, rushing the ball. Defenses are now on their heels because we can stack the box, but they're just running straight into us. That's where the Alabama passing game is going to start taking off. Whenever the running game really starts unlocking the openings, and especially when we look at who the new offensive coordinator is. Now, Tommy Rees has proved if you give him an explosive wide receiver, he's going to do good work with them. If we look at the 2021 Notre Dame offense, he had a wide receiver just shy of averaging 20 yards per reception. So he has shown in the past, you give him someone explosive, he will stretch the field with them. But if you give him this running back room, if this offensive line gets into bully ball, that explosive wide receiver could really become a problem now. And that could unlock the path for Alabama to having supreme success at the running back position and at the wide receiver position. And though the quarterback will be important to that, no argument here, in my opinion, it's not the most important part of that. It's the offensive line. Because if the offensive line gives the running backs the lanes, they're going to be able to eat, which will make the safeties come forward, which will give the quarterbacks easier times connecting those passes to the wide receivers, because the wide receivers are now probably being asked to be in one-on-one situations. And there's a lot of guys in Alabama's wide receiver room that I think you have faith in that can win a one-on-one situation. It all stems from the offensive line. Football is won and lost in the trenches, and I think there's this inclination amongst fans for us to overcomplicate things, and look, partway deservedly so. There's no argument from me that who the quarterback will be for Alabama will be incredibly important. It will be incredibly important. But to me, what the offensive line will allow the quarterback to do makes the offensive line that much more important, and that is the reason it's the most important unit for the Crimson Tide going into the 2023 season. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.